Well, we survived the 100-day moving average and we got stuck with a 50-day moving average. We're going to summarize the week because Meta, well, didn't have that good of a week, but Google and Microsoft had an amazing week, and Snap did something that they haven't done in ages. Let's summarize all the headlines and talk about next week, because next week is a very, very dramatic week for the whole rally, for the market, for everything that involves our money. Are you ready for it? Then let's go. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, hello, my name is Micha Stocks, and on this channel we talk about, the news from the stock market. We talk about stocks, we look sometimes at charts, everything that's relevant to know when you're in the market. And let's dive into our channel, which is, let's press the right button, Stock Talk with Micha Stocks, currently 3.1k subscribers. So if you're new, it would be amazing if you could smash that subscribe button and click all. Let's start directly with the major averages. Here they are. Dow Jones ends up plus 0.6. The RSP, which is the equal weighted S&P 500, 1.6%. S&P up 2.6%. Russell up 2.7%. And the NASDAQ almost 4% for the week. Do you remember we had a correction? Was it a correction? Is it done? Who knows? When we look at the indices, you can see that there was no indice that ended negative. We see the XLB, which is the materials, the lowest gain 0.6 versus technology, XLK 3.7. We see discretionary 3.6. A relatively very, very good week. When we look at the crypto market, didn't have such a good week. Bitcoin is down 5%. Ethereum is down 1.1%. When we look at the commodities, we see natural gas up 9.3% versus oil up only 0.6%. On the silver and gold front, mainly on the 0 or minus 0.5%. And this brings us to the Magnificent Seven. And this week, they were magnificent. Well, except Meta. We see Nvidia up 15%, Tesla up 14%. Yes, on the week, Tesla up 14%. I know you haven't heard that in a long time. Google up 11.5%, Amazon up 2%, Apple up 2%, Microsoft up 1.8%, and only Meta, after their earnings, down 1.6%. When we look at the heat map, this is how the heat map looks like. As of this week, you can see most of the companies in the green versus the red. And that, as usual, brings us to the news of the week. We'll start with the macro and dive into the micro. Here we go. Friday morning PCE comes out actually as estimated, but it was a bit higher than estimated. You can see that in the year-over-year deflator, where we ended up at 2.8 versus 2.7. So that was supposed to scare the market, but it didn't really scare the market. During this whole week, the market wasn't scared almost at anything. Even the fact that rate cut expectations are now down so much for the year that now we are at 1.3 rate cuts for the whole year. We started the year, January 15, between 6 to 7 rate cuts. We are now at 1.3, and the market is absorbing everything. It's a very, very strong number. It's a very, very strong market, or a crazy market. Who knows? GDP also came lower than expected. The economy is growing, but not as fast as everyone predicted. China is stacking up on gold. No one really knows why. China trading volume for gold was 5x the usual average. They might be planning something. Who knows? And this chart is crazy, coming from Bank of America. Bank of America calculated what would be the annual interest payment at April 2025 if the Fed will not take down the rates. If the Fed will keep the rates stable, America will need to pay $1.7 trillion on their debt. If the Fed lowers the rate by 150 basis points, that brings us down to $1.2 trillion. I don't want to even calculate how much it's per day, but it's crazy number. And by the way, that might be the reason why the Fed will lower rates, not because anything related to inflation or something like that. Chinese President Xi met Secretary of State Blinken, trying to calm things down and work together or building back the relationship between China and the US. And the Senate passed a bill supporting or transferring aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Korea, but also giving TikTok, it was Wednesday, so we have less than 270 days to sell the entity to a US entity, or at least to sell the algorithm. And now ByteDance, of course, automatically reacts and says, we're not going to sell anything to anyone. They're going to fight it over court, and we'll see if America would go through and eliminate TikTok altogether. So we had a lot of earnings this week. What did we learn from all these earnings? We learned several things. We'll start with a mega cap. Microsoft, Google, or Alphabet, amazing, stellar earnings. By the way, Meta as well. Why did Meta crash versus Microsoft and Google? That went respectively, Microsoft up 4%, Google up 13%, and then went down a bit to plus 10%. Because Meta is increasing their spend or investment for the next year, both on AI and on metaverse, and not going back to the lean and mean. Microsoft and Google are still investing as well, but they're growing like crazy. And that's the big difference between the past and today. In the past, companies were industrial. They were a different type of companies. And they didn't have the growth rate or the size that these mega caps have. Meta grew their ad business by more than 20%. And I'm not talking about a company that does $1 million per quarter. I'm talking in billions. Microsoft grows their business. Google double-digit growth. That is why a lot of the usual ways that people learn how to invest is not applicable at the market. Not because this time it's different, because the whole market, the whole dynamic is different, at least from my perspective. And that's a good opportunity to mention that everything and anything that you see here is only my opinion. It is not financial advice. You should seek a financial advisor if you want to seek a financial advisor. This is only for entertainment and education purpose only. Tesla reported this week a bad earnings. They missed almost across the board, yet the stock went up. Why? Because they promised a lot of things that people expected, that they're going to keep the lower price car, that they're going to hopefully start producing next year. They're going to launch robotaxi, or at least talk about robotaxi at August 8th. And more good news for investors, and investors like that. We also heard from other companies which basically didn't tell us something that we didn't know. Companies that executed well, their stock performed amazing. Companies that didn't, like me, Intel and others, didn't. Snapchat, first earnings at a plus, meaning that they came out with profit that wasn't expected, and the stock shot high by 25%. And after I mentioned all that, the most, I want to say, forwarded or retweeted meme for this week was Meta beats on earnings and down 10%, Tesla misses up 10%, and someone throws The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Well, I think it's an amazing book. I just think that times have changed, and that book is probably less relevant these days. Tesla still has problem with the NHTSA, NHTSA, that opens a probe against them on the autopilot updates, mentioning that Tesla didn't do enough to solve the problems on autopilot. Trump and his allies are trying to draw a plan to reduce Fed independence. They want the Fed to come and ask for the president, in this case, in their case, what they hope, Donald Trump, for any changes in rates. That, of course, is something that will impact dramatic the U.S. Independence and a lot of other things from a financial perspective. FDA approves Pfizer first gene therapy rear bleeding disorder. This is the first time Pfizer uses this kind of therapy, and probably in the next few years, we will see a lot of gene therapy treatments coming out to the market. Microsoft says that their cloud AI demand is so high that they're not even able to supply the surge. they will keep on investing in more GPUs to keep standing behind the demand. Standard Chartered says Bitcoin is going to be by end of the year $150,000. If it's not there, just blame them, not me. I'm just showing you the news. And Mercedes gets a level 3 approval before Tesla for their car. And of course, it's a huge achievement for them. But when you read the fine print, you need to ride 40 miles per hour in a clear and visible road behind a different car. You can't be alone in the street. And you need to be on the right lane. Basically, you need to drive like an 80-year-old. Maybe that's what they planned it for? Who knows? Apology for 80-year-olds here that are race drivers. And Jensen, NVIDIA CEO, just hand-delivered the new... it's not even a computer. It's not even a rack. It's like this, what you see here is a huge AI accelerator for OpenAI to run everything they need. AMD also unveiled Ryzen Pro 8040 and 8000 chips, this to compete with NVIDIA and Intel on the PC front. Snowflake launches their new LLM called Arctic. They believe it's going to have better performance at lower compute time. Hong Kong is going to launch by April 30 spot Bitcoin and Ether ETF that will increase the demand for both Bitcoin and ETF, and of course, hopefully, will ignite the rally in the crypto market. Jack Dorsey talking about the crypto market, and Square, the payment company, is building their own Bitcoin mining system. And Tesla, one last thing that I didn't mention, through their deck, their investor deck, also showed that they're working on a ride-hailing app. So cars will drive themselves and you will be able to order a Tesla from the app. When will it be ready? Probably in the next few years. Apple launches May 7 a new event early morning in the US, 10 Eastern, called Let Loose. Probably if you see an Apple Pencil, it will be related to iPads and the Apple Pencil, maybe even AirPods. We will see May 7th. And also regarding Apple, analysts now are reducing the units that Apple is going to sell for the Apple Vision Pro. And of course, Apple is reporting Thursday. We're going to hear more from them. Most important on Apple's side, we would like to hear what's going on in China. What are they going to do with the iPhone sales that dived 19%? HashiCorp is being acquired by IBM. They're going to be, if approved, the stock is going to, it's an all-stock deal, and it's going to stop trading at $35 per share. The FTC blocks the $8.5 billion merger between Capri Holdings and Tapestry. These are high-end luxury handbags that want to merge, and the FTC thinks that that will create a monopoly in the luxury handbag market. Really impacts most of the people. And the New York Stock Exchange tests the ability to trade 24/7, just like crypto. There's pre-market, there's aftermarket. On Robinhood app, you can actually trade 24/7 with bad spreads, but you still can. Maybe the whole market will go to 24/5 or 24/7. We might see that in the next few years. I wouldn't be surprised. It makes a lot of sense. And Amazon, writing down their drone delivery operations, at least in California, they're probably going to focus on areas where it's really needed. FIFA is in talks with Apple, or actually Apple is in talks with FIFA to buy the broadcasting rights for a new tournament next summer. A tournament for clubs. Would be interesting. And Moderna and OpenAI collaborate to advance Moderna's medicine through the use of AI. And those were the major news for this week, because the rest were just earnings report. Let's dive into next week, which starts with earnings. These are the companies, or at least some of the companies, the most anticipated ones, that are going to report next week, or the next few days. These would be SoFi on Monday. It will be Paramount, Transocean, and XPI on Monday. Of course, there are a lot more. You can see their names and logos here. Tuesday morning before the bell, we'll hear from PayPal, Eli Lilly, 3M, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, and others. And Tuesday after the bell, we're going to hear from Amazon, AMD, Supermicro Computer. We're going to hear from Starbucks, Riot, Pinterest, and on Wednesday we'll hear from Pfizer, CVS, MasterCard, and Norwegian. All that before the bell, and after the bell we're going to hear from Qualcomm, Devon, Paycom, Carvana, and others. This brings us to Thursday, which is a very, very important day, at least for Novo Nordisk, which is going to report their earnings. Then Peloton, Moderna, Zoetics, and others. And after the bell, or 30 minutes after the bell, Apple is going to report their earnings. Coinbase, Square, or Block, DraftKings, Cloudflare, Net, Fortinet, and others. Brings us to Friday with Shinir, Hershey, Fubo TV, and others. But as I mentioned, this week is important also from the Fed perspective, because coming May 1st, 2 p.m. Eastern, we are going to get the Fed interest rate decision. 90-something%, no change in rates. But most important is to hear what they're going to write in the summary. Are they still hawkish, or are they dovish? Are they going to say that they're going to reduce rates regardless of inflation, or they're going to say, no, inflation is too high, we're not going to reduce rates? Are they going to spook the market or work with the market? We don't know. We're going to talk about it next week on the weekly summary. And as usual, that brings us to our chart. This is the S&P 500 represented by the SPY ETF that follows the S&P 500. And as you remember from last week, we were on the verge of breaking the 100-day moving average. We actually found the floor on a 100-day moving average, or at least a support, at least for now. Then when we look up, we see the 50-day moving average as a ceiling. And now we're stuck between the 50-day and the 100-day. What will happen next week is very important. If we climb over the 50-day with authority, with volume, we might see again on the S&P 500 new all-time high, maybe even scratching 5,400. But if we break down from the 100-day moving average, look down, because we might go down to 4,700 and even to 4,600, to the 150 and the 200-day moving average. Why are they so important? Because they give us guidance to where the markets will find support. As you can see here, it found support on a 100-day moving average. That was the weekly summary for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash that like button, and you can forward it to your friends if they're interested in the stock market and investing. I'm Micha Stocks saying bye-bye.